All right, so today we are reviewing for SAT, and we don't have a lot of time, so we're going to jump around on some topics. But first of all, the SAT has two math tests. There is a no calculator there at the end of the day, okay, before the essay, but they're the last two timed tests other than the essay. The first one is no calculator. It's 25 minutes. You have a formula sheet that comes with the test. You need to familiarize yourself with that formula sheet. There are a total of 20 questions, and the last few are free response. It's not always the same number of free response. This particular one has, I think, 5 free response, okay? You should do the free response questions first. Free response means if the answer is always positive, okay, on those free response questions, and it can be entered as a decimal or fraction, as long as it either one will work if it's not exact, okay? And you can score, if the answer is 17 and there's 4 blanks, you can enter 1, 7 in the first or the last 2. Does everybody understand what I'm saying? It'll be graded correct, okay? Those are the things you need to know and make sure you know ahead of time, because there is an entire page in here of there's 2 pages of directions and reading about how to score things, how to grid things, how to use the formula sheet, etc. Don't want to waste your time reading those, okay? But let me reiterate, if you do the free response first, okay, then if you're left with 3 or 4 questions you don't know how to answer and they're multiple choice, you can guess. If you have 5 free response that you never get to, you're not going to get them right. There's pretty much 0 chance that you're going to guess on free response. Does that make sense? Okay, so attempt the free response first, then do the multiple choice. You know, give yourself a guess or a mark or whatever to questions you want to come back to based on time. If you have 5 questions you're going to guess on, should you guess A, B, C, D? No. If you can narrow down the choices quickly and know 2 of them are wrong, great. But if you're going to guess blindly on 5 questions, you should pick a letter and put that down for every one of them. B, 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 C, 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 whatever you think. Okay, I'm not going to tell you that one is more often given the other because it's not true. But do you understand what I'm saying? If you randomly guess A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, you're likely to get none of them right. If you guess B, 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 you'll probably get at least one of them right, okay? It's always best if you have time to read and eliminate the choices you know are wrong. All right, I have smarts open of all of worksheet, was it 16, 17, 18, and 19, or something like that? 20 from the back? Has anybody looked at them and has some they want me to talk about? Mary, Paige, nobody? Maddie, nobody spent some time looking at these yet? All right, how about a topic? Do you want to do systems? Worksheets 18 and 19 are on systems. Has anybody taken a practice test? Systems is on there quite a bit, okay? So this is a systems question. This is the start of worksheet 18, I think. Is that right, guys? Okay. This is a no calculator portion. So if you were thinking of how to solve this, you could graph, you could use substitution, you could do a lot of things. Let's see. Sorry, my pen is There we go. If you kind of did substitution here, I'm not sure what the best plan is. If you divide the second one both by 2, you'd have x is greater than 5/2. Okay. If you put that into the first one, 2 times 5/2 minus 1, you would get y is greater than 4. That seems like a good way to solve that one. I think I graphed it. Yeah, you're right. Because this was 2x and this was 2x. This said 2x is greater, so you could have just substituted the 5 right in there. Okay. How many solutions are there to this system? If this is no calculator, you can't just jump on and graph it, right? If you remember discriminant, does anybody remember the discriminant? B squared minus 4ac. If that is greater than 0 or positive, there are 2 solutions. If it's equal to 0, there's 1 solution. If it's less than 0, there's no solution because it has to do with quadratic formula. So on this question, you could solve this for y, put this in here, get it equal to 0, and decide. Some of you could try to sketch a graph to see if they're going to intersect. What are we looking at, guys? What are these going to graph as? The first one is a parabola. The second one is a line. Okay? Generally, we think of a line crossing a parabola in 2 places, but it is possible to cross in 1 or 0. I mean, I don't know what you want. Do you want me to do this one? Spend time on this? If you made this say y equals 5x minus 8 by moving things over to the other side, and then you substituted in it here, 5x minus 8 equals x squared plus 3x minus 7, and then you made it equal to 0. I think you'd have minus 2x plus 1. That actually factors x minus 1, so it would have 1 solution. But I didn't use the discriminant. The discriminant would be, this would be A, B, and C. So you would have had, negative 2 squared minus 4 times A times C, which would be 4 minus 4 is 0, so you would get 1 solution. But the discriminant is helpful on, usually at least on 1 question somewhere in there. What is the value of y? So you could just add these, right? See what happens, and you might need to plug the, actually if you add them, I think you'll find the solution for y right away. This is no calculator. Okay, if you add these together, you get 4y equals 6, y equals 3/2. You could bubble that as 1.5 or 3 divided by 2. You cannot bubble 1.5 mixed number, okay? It's either got to be an improper fraction or decimal. And a decimal they will take, even if it was like 1/3, you could bubble 0.33 and it would take it, even though you've rounded. Yes? Yes, that's a great question. And yes, there is, it's in the directions for that part, but here you can look at it, but there's 4 boxes. The middle 2 offer you the choice of a decimal, or actually a decimal is offered in all of them. The middle 2 offer the choice of the slash of fraction bar as well, okay? So your answer is always positive. It's never more than 4 digits or 3 and a decimal point, etc. All right, this is just writing a system. You have to pick the one that makes sense. Again, most of the SAT is reading carefully. All right. 2 types of tickets are sold. Tickets to sit on a bench cost 75. You can write all over the test, so make yourself notes. To sit on the lawn cost 40. So the total cost of the tickets was $19.25. Those are things are all about money. So there you go. 75 bench plus 40 lawn is 19,000. I'm thinking it's got to be that one. Because then it says 350 tickets sold. Well, that would just be number of tickets plus number of tickets equals 350, which makes it D, okay? So if it's a lot of reading and you don't want to spend too long on it, try to narrow down the choices quickly. And then, you know, put yourself, I might need to come back and check if I have time to reread that one carefully. Make sure I really pick the best choice. This one is very similar. This one says MRSA needs to hire at least 10 staff members for an upcoming project. Staff members need to be made up of junior directors who paid $640 a week, senior directors who paid $880 a week. Her budget for staffing is no more than $9,700. What? Do you not have this number 9 anywhere? 18B, sorry. So it was 640 and 880, and it said it had to be no more than, so less than 7,400. So, or less than or equal to. So either of these are looking okay. All right, then she must hire at least 3 junior directors, and those were the ones who were paid $640, so X has to be greater than or equal to 3 at least. So this one is the only one that I agree with, I think, right? And then at least 1 senior director greater than or equal to 1 to double check. But underline things, highlight things, you're allowed to have a highlighter, colored pencil, whatever you want to do. Just make sure when you go to bubble, it's in pencil. And you may not use a mechanical pencil. All right, what is one possible value of X? So substitute this in here and then solve by factoring or whatever way you can, get it equal to 0. Now, if there's more than one answer, it will take more than one answer, but you just have to find one of them and be done. Does that make sense? Okay. And it depends. If this is on the calculator part, you could just graph this and see where they intersect. Find one of the points of intersection, put in the X value only. I don't remember which, this says calculator allowed. So yes, it would be probably fast to graph this for some of you who aren't good at factoring. Did you have a question, Star?
Well, you just said that, but if there's more than one, you just put that in there.
Yes. If there's more than one possible solution, it will take and mark correct either of the solutions. This is a reading thing. I don't know where I'm at, but this one you could solve by adding them together. And it would say 13x equals 13, so you would get x equals 1. You could plug it back in. And I got y is 1/3. But then what does it say at the end, guys? What is the value of x minus y? This is how math team always have to do your answers. You have to do something crazy at the end, okay? So 1 minus 1/3 would be 2/3. And this was a multiple choice one. Which ordered pair satisfies this system? Some options here. Could you figure out which ordered pairs work without actually solving it? Okay. So it says take the y, subtract 3, and see if you get x. So 0 minus 3 is -3. That one works in the first one. 3 minus 3 is 0. That one works in the first one. -3 minus 3 is not this, and that one doesn't work. So we're down to 2 possible ones that work, and all I did was look at this first one. Okay? Then it says the 0 divided by 2 plus 2y equals 6. 0 right here, I'm sorry, it says the x divided by 2. So 0 divided by 2 plus 3 times 2 is 6. It seems like B is good. And some of you could have solved that algebraically just as fast, but I'm just offering you some optional ways to look at problems. This one says, what is the value of x? If you're solving a system and you want x, do you want the x to drop out first? You can, but then you have to go back and plug it in to find, okay, find the y first. So if you're thinking I need the x to be left, you want the y to drop out first, you could multiply this by 3 and this by -4 and then figure out, because the y's will drop out, so you'll be left with the x's. So just think ahead about how you could solve. Number 18 here says the system of equations has an xy. What is the value of x? So they want you to find x. This is a really good one though. Like Jada said, do you see how it says y equals 2x? So I could replace this y with a 2x. All right. Now the top equation says 1/2 of 4x equals 21 halves, okay? So that would be 2x equals 21 over 2. To get rid of this, I take half. So I'd have 21 over 4. And if this was a free response, I would just bubble 21 division 4. I wouldn't bother to worry about the decimal, typing it in, doing anything. It might be no calculator anyway, I don't know. I'm not guaranteeing everything I'm doing real fast here is correct, but I think I'm okay so far. Let me know if you disagree. Which one of the following satisfies the system above? How could you do this? Normally, I would graph this and find which one was in the double shaded region. But if I'm trying to make efficient use of my time, just try some of these. Is x minus 1 greater than 1? So -2 minus -1 would be -1, and that's not greater than 1, so that's a no. 1 minus 5 is -4, that's not greater than 1. 2 minus -1 would be 3. -1 minus 3 is not greater than 1. The only one I got that even works in that second equation is D. And you could check it in the first equation, put a 2 in here. Is -1 less than 5? Yes. Okay? So different ways you can solve that will make use of your time. Did anybody see one they wanted me to go back and talk about on those worksheets? On systems. Okay. If I switch to worksheet 16, this one is primarily on quadratics. If this is a calculator allowed question, after approximately how many seconds will the ball hit the ground? Did we do those on the calculator? Yeah, there's 2 ways you could do that. What is true? It's the height is 0, right? Now, I want to tell you right now, I did not take time to read this whole question. I just went to the question at the end. A lot of you will start at the beginning and read the whole thing, but sometimes it's just as efficient to go to the question at the end and then see, do I really need to go back and read the whole thing? Okay? Like the fact that it was vertically upward from the ground with an initial velocity of 25 meters per second. That's already in the equation. I really don't need to mess with that. So I could do this. Does somebody know what worksheet this is? It looks like 16. So you could graph this on your calculator, but you got to find a window. Can you just eyeball it? What can you take out right now? A t? Well, 0 isn't one of the options, right? So this is what's left. Negative 4.9t plus 25 equals 0. So subtract, I'm guessing it's D. If I move negative 25 over there and divide by negative 4.9, could be C. What did it come out? Yep. You could have put the values in to see which one made it 0. Okay. If you're going to put the numbers into the equation for any of your options, my suggestion is you either start at the top or the bottom of the list of choices and progress through in order, okay? Don't like do A, then D, then B, then C. It just means you got to spend extra time keeping track of what you did, okay? Unless there's a method to it. For example, if I put in 3.5 and I'm really far away, then I might jump to the 5 to try. But keep track of what you tried. There's no point not to, because you get to erase things. Again, I'm jumping to the question at the end. Which of these help me identify the vertex? Anybody know? If it's a calculator question, I guess you could graph them on your calculator, but these all have x squareds, yes? If you were to FOIL them together? Okay, so which is in vertex form, guys? You should know that. D. This is vertex form, where 1, negative 16 would be the vertex. Vertex form looks like this. The graph of this intersects the graph of y equals x at the point 0, 0, and something else. What is the value of A? Well, I suppose we could put in x for y because it says they're equal. I subtract an x over to that side. So one of them's 0, 0, but what's the other one, guys? What makes this true? Can you eyeball that? 3 times what? Minus 15 would be 0. 5, right? So the value of A is 5. The equation above represents a parabola in the xy plane. Which of the following equivalent forms displays the x-intercepts of the parabola as coefficients or constants? X-intercepts, also called the zeros, also called factored form. So which of these is equivalent to one of these down here in factored form? Well, which one of them is even factored, guys? D. Then just check, does it match this? Okay, that's it. If it's a multiple choice question, always look at the choices so that you know what you're working with, okay? Which of the following is an equivalent form of the function in which the minimum value appears as a constant or coefficient? when you have a parabola, this would have an x squared. So it's a parabola. It has zeros at -6 and 4, -6 and 4. So it's a parabola. Is it opening up or down? Has a positive x squared, so it's opening up. Somewhere down here is the vertex, okay? Which of these are in vertex form? Either C or D. So you can already eliminate this one and this one. Is this a graphing question, a calculator question? Calculator allowed, okay? So you could graph and see, I would graph this and see where the minimum is, okay? I think it's actually gonna be D. Does anybody, here's a quick review of a concept. Do you remember that the axis of symmetry is right through the middle of those? So if you add -6 and 4, you get -2, you cut it in half, you're at -1. So actually -1 is where the minimum is at, not +1. And so that's D. But use your graphing calculator to your advantage. You guys know how to, so. This question gave me such heartache. And then I realized it wasn't really that bad. What page is this on? 16B, okay. So what do you know looking at it right now? This times this is what? They have FOILed this together and got this answer. So A times B is 15. And it says right here, A plus B is 8. Can anybody think of some numbers that's true? 3 and 5, okay? Now, I don't think that's actually necessarily. So if A and B are 3 and 5, you could have 3x plus 2 times 5x plus 7, or they could be switched. But I don't think we necessarily need to find all the, look at, none of these choices are the same, right? So if we can figure out what C would be just from this example, that'll figure out which one it is. We don't have to do the switchy thing. So this is 21, and this is 10. So what would that make C right here, the middle term? If you FOIL that together, you get 15x squared plus 10x plus 21x plus 14, 31. Only one possibility. What number squared minus 4 is 0, guys? 2 or -2, right? When you square it. So it says right here greater than 0. And honestly, if it's a free response question, the answer can never be negative. So 2. You bubble it. Nope. Free response answers are all positive. Less than 4 digits. Can somebody tell me one of these we can get rid of for sure? B, 3 to the 4th is not 9, right? C, 9 squared is not 9. Is 9 to the 4th 9? Okay. Left with one that even works for the first term, right? Yes. That's a great question. If you have access to a graphing calculator or a calculator that you are familiar with using, please bring it. we are providing, if rooms have 25 students, we might be providing 12 or 15 calculators, but there's not going to be one for everybody, okay? So remember to bring your calculator. Do not bring your phone, okay? Leave it in your car that day. If you bring it, it needs to be powered down and left in your bag the entire time. You cannot take it out at break. It will invalidate your test and possibly other people's. What is the sum of all values of m? This is a trick. Actually, all right. It would not take you long to solve this just by factoring. What can you do first? Take out a 2, and then you have m squared minus 8m plus 4. Now, that actually doesn't factor, but I will give you a little hint here. When you have something in where a is 1, this number, this is how you multiply, right? They have to multiply to make 4, but they have to add to make the opposite of this. So they have to add to 8. If you did quadratic formula, you would get 4 plus or minus, or you'd get this as your choices, but the sum of the two of them together, negative 4 square roots of 3 plus 4 square roots of 3, actually is 0. What have I done? If you do quadratic formula, just to remind you how it goes, opposite of b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. You would end up with 4 plus or minus, this is still over 2, 64 minus 16 is maybe 48, which is 16 times 3, and that's still over 2. I don't know, that's probably. But if you add those together, 4 plus 2 square roots of 3 and 4 minus 2 square roots of 3, you get 8, okay? It's always, this is the product, and this is the opposite of the sum. It's a little math team trick. And we had to factor out the 2 first. These are the equations. So 8x squared minus 2 turned out to be equal to negative 8x squared plus 2 if you want to know where they're intersecting. So if you add 8x squared over here, you get 16x squared. You add 2 over to this side, you get 4. X squared is 4 over 16. When you square root, you get what? What's square root of 4? Square root of 16. You could reduce ahead of time or now. What's the value of k? 1/2, yes? Which, this is a multiple choice, so you'd just bubble B. If it was a free response question, you could bubble 2/4 or 1/2 or 0.5, okay? And I don't believe it even has to be 0.5, it could just be 0.5. I think you have to bubble the 0. Read the question here. What is the value of p? So how are you going to factor that, guys? 4x squared minus 9. 2 and 2, right? P is 2, you're done. Don't spend extra time. If you're, if you think, well, I'm not sure I read that very carefully, put a question mark by it and come back to it if you have time. Yes. Yep. This one? Yep. It said the sum of all values, okay? So after you find the two answers, you were supposed to add them. So if I did quadratic very fast, but I got this.
Yeah, I got that too.
And when you add those together, you would just get 8. But it's a little known math team rule that the B value will tell you the sum, okay? The opposite of the B value tells you the sum, but it's actually like B over A. So you would have here opposite of 16, negative 16 divided by 2 because you got to factor the 2 out. Is that it on that one? We got one more to look at quick. Function stuff. This is worksheet 17. This is definitely a weird one, but it says the table above, no calculator, shows some values of this function for which value of x is the value w of t plus w of x equal to x. So basically, if you add these two together, do you get this answer? That's all it's asking. Anybody spot it? 3 plus negative 1 is 2. Okay, so it said for which value of x, so the value of x was 2. So don't overthink stuff. Did I accidentally put one underneath that? Looks like. Is this, oh, I think I have that on a different page. That's a transformation question, okay. This is a nightmare. I did this question and I spent like 5-6 minutes on it. That's not realistic, okay? It says, these two polynomials are listed above. Which of the following polynomials, if you add them, multiply one by 3 and add them, multiply one by 2 and the other one by 3 and then add them, and then you want to know which one is divisible by this. You have to do polynomial long division after you did all that, okay? Let's just glance at a couple of the choices though. If you add these together, what will it end with? A 2, right? Is this going to be divisible into a 2, you think? If it's a 2x plus 3? Likely not, right? 3 is not going to come up. So I'd get rid of that one. If you did 3 times this one, then that constant would be a 6, right? So that seems like it might be a possibility. If you did 2 times g, you'd end up with a 4 at the back, and a 3 isn't going to go into a 4. So I would say it's either B or C. That helps eliminate a couple of the options without actually doing the problem. I would take a guess and move on and come back to it if you have time, okay? I did add them and do the long division. I don't remember if I got B or C, but it was painful. Do you remember how to do this, guys? Just put a -3 in here. -2 times a -3x plus 5. Which one is it? Okay, function notation. This says in the function above, b is a constant. If f of 6 is 7, what is the value of f of -2? So if I put a 6 in up here, I get out a 7. Can you figure out what b has to be then? 7 equals, is this calculator or no calculator? 3 times 6 is 18 divided by 2 is 9. So what does that make b? So it's this. Now you're supposed to put in a -2. This basically reduces, you get -3 minus 2. If this is calculator, definitely better for some of you. You could make this very miserable, but it says when I put a 2 into F, I get out a 3. When I put a 3 into F, I get out a 5. Okay, let's just look at this. If you put a 3 into what first? How does this go, guys? You work these inside out. So if you put a 3 into G, what are you going to get out? What does it say? It says here, if you put a 3 into G, you get out a 2. So now I have left this. And if I put a 2 into F, after I figured that out, it comes out a 3. So I didn't have to come up with an equation of a line, anything crazy. In an XY coordinate plane, the point 36 lies on the graph of this. What is it's supposed to say, value of B? Ideas on how to do that one? This is an X and this is a Y, right? 6 equals 3 times 3 squared minus B times 3 plus 12. So if I subtract 6, oh, actually, yeah, just, this is 9 times 3 would be 27 minus 3B plus 6. That would be, I don't know, my brain. It doesn't need to factor because we don't have a squared anymore. So I'm getting, I don't know, I might have done something wrong. I got 32 over 3, but I think 3, this is supposed to be 33. Yeah, 27 and 6 on a good day is 33. So then you get 11. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to look at that yellow packet of province stats kind of things that could be on the SAT. There's not really homework tonight, so do what you need to do. I am available during advisory if anybody needs a pass.